Marcus is 42 years old. He lives in Chicago. He earns nearly $400,000 a year working in corporate healthcare consulting. On paper, Marcus is successful by almost every modern standard. He drives a leased luxury SUV with soft leather seats and ambient lighting. His condo sits in a high-rise building with rooftop amenities, private security, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. His daughter attends private school. His vacations look expensive on Instagram. Business-class flights, boutique hotels, oceanfront dinners under warm lighting designed to photograph perfectly. Most nights, food arrives through delivery apps because Marcus tells himself he's too busy to cook. His monthly housing costs alone are higher than what many Americans make in 2 months. From the outside, his life looks financially untouchable. But one Thursday night at 11:47 p.m., Marcus sits in bed staring at his phone while Slack notifications continue buzzing beside him. A surprise tax bill just hit his inbox. The number is larger than expected. Not catastrophic, but enough to trigger panic. Marcus realizes something uncomfortable. Despite years of earning extraordinary income, he cannot comfortably absorb the hit without dipping into investments, moving balances around, or temporarily relying on debt. And Marcus is not irresponsible. He's educated, intelligent, hardworking. He understands investing. He contributes to retirement accounts. He knows what compound interest is. Yet financially, he feels trapped. According to multiple 2025 financial studies from institutions including Bankrate, Lending Club, Empower, and Charles Schwab, a surprisingly high percentage of Americans earning well into 6 figures still report living paycheck to paycheck. Even among households earning between $300,000 and $500,000 annually, financial anxiety remains extremely common. Think about how strange that sounds. People earning more in 1 month than many families earn in an entire year still feel financially exposed. That contradiction reveals one of the biggest financial illusions in modern America. Most people believe income automatically creates security. Society teaches that financial stress disappears once you reach a certain number. 50,000 feels difficult. 100,000 feels comfortable. 200,000 should feel wealthy. 500,000 should feel untouchable. But reality works differently because income alone does not create wealth. What matters is how much of that income survives after lifestyle expansion quietly consumes it. And millions of high earners are discovering too late that a large paycheck can hide an incredibly fragile financial life. This is the high-income poverty trap, one of the most dangerous financial patterns of the modern economy. And the terrifying part is how invisible it feels while it's happening. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to become financially trapped. The process happens gradually, quietly, almost invisibly. A nicer apartment becomes a larger mortgage. A reliable car becomes a luxury lease. Convenient spending slowly becomes permanent spending. Small upgrades stack on top of each other until the entire lifestyle requires the full income just to survive. That's when the trap closes. Because once luxury becomes routine, downgrading no longer feels practical. It feels humiliating. And this has almost nothing to do with intelligence. Doctors fall into it. Lawyers fall into it. Entrepreneurs fall into it. Tech executives fall into it. High performers are especially vulnerable because they're trained to solve problems through effort. Need more money, work harder, take another client, build another business, chase another promotion. But there's a limit to how much effort can compensate for uncontrolled lifestyle inflation. Eventually, income increases, stop improving freedom because the lifestyle expands at nearly the same speed, and psychology drives the entire process. Behavioral economists call part of this phenomenon hedonic adaptation. Human beings adjust incredibly fast to improve conditions. The first luxury apartment feels exciting, then it becomes normal. The first expensive vehicle feels special, then it simply becomes my car. The expensive vacations stop feeling extraordinary and start feeling expected. Satisfaction fades quickly. Expenses do not. This is why lifestyle inflation becomes so dangerous. It rarely arrives through one reckless purchase. It arrives through hundreds of small, reasonable decisions. Better restaurants, faster delivery, premium subscriptions, higher-end gyms, more expensive schools, renovations, upgraded wardrobes, convenience services, country club memberships. Individually, every decision feels justified. After all, you worked hard for this life. Technically, you can afford it. But over time, the lifestyle expands to absorb nearly the entire income stream. According to Federal Reserve and Bureau of Economic Analysis data through 2025, personal savings rates in the United States remain historically weak compared to previous generations despite rising incomes in certain professional sectors. Many households earning extraordinary salaries still save surprisingly little relative to their spending power. And that's the real issue. The trap doesn't care how much you make, it only cares how much you keep. A family earning $70,000 while saving almost nothing is financially fragile. But a family earning $400,000 while saving almost nothing is fragile too. The numbers are larger, the restaurants are nicer, the zip code changes, but the underlying vulnerability remains exactly the same. No margin, no flexibility, no room for disruption. If the income disappears, the structure shakes immediately. And high-income households often create even more dangerous fixed costs because banks approve larger liabilities. A bank may approve a massive mortgage based on your income. That does not mean the decision creates long-term security. A family earning $80,000 may spend $2,000 monthly on housing. A family earning $300,000 may spend $8,000. Different numbers, same pressure. Both households built lifestyles consuming most of what they earn. The high-income version simply comes with more expensive obligations: private school tuition, luxury vehicle leases, vacation properties, childcare costs, insurance premiums, social expectations. These expenses eventually stop feeling optional. Parents convince themselves their children cannot leave private school. Selling the second property feels embarrassing. Downgrading the vehicle feels public. Even cutting back on dining out can trigger discomfort because the lifestyle has fused with identity. And identity spending is one of the most powerful forces in modern consumer psychology. People rarely buy things only for utility anymore. They buy emotional signaling. The right neighborhood signals success, the right school signals status, the right watch signals achievement, the right vacation signals importance. Social media amplified this dramatically. For most of human history, people compared themselves mainly to neighbors and coworkers. Today, people compare themselves against millions of curated highlight reels online. A man earning $250,000 annually can genuinely feel financially behind because his digital environment constantly exposes him to people spending at even higher levels. Social comparison never ends because there will always be someone wealthier, someone with a larger house, a newer car, better vacations, more exclusivity, more visible status. And if your emotional definition of success depends on finally feeling like enough, you may never arrive. According to Charles Schwab's 2025 Modern Wealth Survey, Americans continue reporting that the amount of money required to feel financially comfortable keeps increasing year after year. The psychological finish line constantly moves. That creates a dangerous emotional treadmill. People hit goals they once dreamed about only to discover those goals no longer feel sufficient once they arrive. $1 million no longer feels rich in many high-cost cities. $200,000 no longer feels extraordinary among elite professional circles. The environment changes expectations faster than income changes security. This is why so many high earners experience hidden anxiety despite objectively successful careers. Financial stress is not only about income, it's about exposure. A person earning $100,000 while saving 30% may quietly build more long-term security than someone earning $400,000 while saving 5%. That sounds counterintuitive until you run the numbers. Imagine two people. One earns $300,000 annually and saves 5%, $15,000 invested yearly. Another earns $200,000 annually and saves 30%, $60,000 invested yearly. Over 20 years, assuming long-term market averages near 7% annualized returns, the gap becomes staggering. The disciplined saver builds meaningful assets, flexibility, and future options. The high spender builds an expensive lifestyle requiring constant income maintenance. This is why visible wealth and actual wealth are often completely different things. Real wealth is not visible consumption. Real wealth is ownership, investments, cash flow, margin, flexibility, time freedom. The ability to survive disruption without panic. And many people who appear rich possess surprisingly little of those things. Research on self-made millionaires has repeatedly shown this pattern for decades. Many real millionaires live ordinary-looking lives. They drive older vehicles. They buy practical homes. They avoid unnecessary status spending. They invest consistently for decades before anyone would visually identify them as wealthy. Quiet wealth rarely looks impressive online. Debt-funded luxury does. That's why modern culture constantly confuses appearance with financial success. The person driving the luxury SUV may be financially stretched to the limit. Meanwhile, the person driving a 10-year-old pickup truck may quietly own millions in investments. One looks wealthy, one is wealthy. Those are not always the same person. And this difference matters more than most people realize because time magnifies financial behavior dramatically. Someone who spends nearly everything they earned for 20 years may still appear successful externally while quietly sacrificing enormous long-term wealth potential. Small recurring spending compounds just like investing compounds, except in reverse. A $1,200 luxury vehicle payment becomes over $14,000 annually. Invested consistently over 15 years with average market returns, that money alone could potentially grow into hundreds of thousands of dollars. A $200 weekly dining habit quietly absorbs more than $10,000 annually. Add food delivery, subscriptions, premium memberships, luxury travel upgrades, convenience spending, and lifestyle creep can easily consume $50,000 to $100,000 yearly for many high earners without triggering immediate alarm because the income remains large enough to hide the damage temporarily. That's why the high-income poverty trap feels invisible. It doesn't look reckless, it often looks successful. People trapped inside it may even receive admiration from others. But admiration and financial stability are completely different things. One of the clearest signs of financial vulnerability is simple. If losing your income for 6 months would immediately threaten your lifestyle despite years of high earnings, something is structurally wrong. Because high income should eventually create resilience, not permanent dependence on the next paycheck. And this becomes especially dangerous during economic uncertainty. Inflation, layoffs, burnout, industry disruption, health issues, divorce, family emergencies, AI-driven job displacement. These pressures are becoming increasingly common in the modern economy. In 2025, many high-performing professionals report exhaustion not because they lack income, but because their lifestyles require them to continue operating at maximum capacity indefinitely. They cannot slow down because the machine they build around themselves has become too expensive to pause. Marcus eventually realized this about his own life. The wake-up call didn't come from a financial disaster. It came from emotional exhaustion. One night after returning from a work trip, he walked into his luxury condo and felt absolutely nothing. The furniture looked expensive. The city skyline looked impressive. But internally, he felt trapped. He had spent years optimizing for appearance instead of freedom. Every raise created another upgrade. Every promotion created another obligation. His income had grown dramatically over the previous decade, but his stress had grown too. That realization changed the way Marcus approached money completely. Instead of asking, "What can I afford now?" he started asking, "What future freedom is this purchase costing me?" That question altered everything. Marcus began tracking fixed costs aggressively. He sold the luxury SUV and purchased a reliable used vehicle instead. Not because he suddenly hated nice cars, but because he realized the payment represented hundreds of future work hours he no longer wanted to sacrifice. He reduced unnecessary subscriptions, stopped upgrading things that already worked, automated investing before discretionary spending happened. He created what financial planners sometimes call a reverse budget. Instead of spending first and saving leftovers, he invested a fixed percentage automatically and built his lifestyle around the remainder. That shift sounds simple. Psychologically, it's enormous because saving what remains after spending rarely works. Human beings naturally expand lifestyle to consume available resources. Automation interrupts that behavior. Marcus also adopted a personal rule that transformed his relationship with money. Every recurring expense had to justify itself annually, not emotionally, financially, and practically. If something no longer improved his life meaningfully relative to its cost, it disappeared. This process exposed how much invisible spending had accumulated over time. Memberships he barely used. Services that saved tiny amounts of time but cost thousands yearly. Luxury habits purchased more for image than genuine fulfillment. Within 2 years, Marcus dramatically increased his savings rate without feeling deprived because he stopped spending automatically and started spending intentionally. More importantly, his stress dropped. That part surprised him most. He discovered something psychologically powerful. Financial peace comes less from maximizing lifestyle and more from reducing dependency. Dependency on constant income, dependency on social approval, dependency on maintaining appearances. Once Marcus understood that, spending decisions became much clearer. He stopped asking, "What should someone at my income level own?" and started asking that what actually improves my life enough to justify the cost. That single mindset shift changed everything. And the interesting part is Marcus still lives well. He still travels, still enjoys experiences, still spends money on things that genuinely matter to him. But now the spending is intentional instead of automatic. This distinction is critical because the solution to the high-income poverty trap is not extreme deprivation. Financially healthy people are not necessarily the people spending the least. They are the people spending most intentionally. They understand trade-offs clearly. Every dollar spent today is future flexibility surrendered tomorrow. That does not mean all spending is bad. Experiences matter, comfort matters, quality matters. But unconscious spending creates unconscious consequences. Many people trapped financially never consciously chose their lifestyle. The lifestyle accumulated around them slowly through years of unexamined upgrades until the entire structure required enormous income simply to maintain. Reversing that pattern requires honesty, brutal honesty sometimes, because many expenses survive primarily due to ego, habit, or social pressure rather than actual utility. Behavioral finance research consistently shows that human beings feel losses emotionally stronger than gains. That's why downgrading feels painful even when financially rational. Once luxury becomes normal, reducing it feels psychologically threatening. This emotional resistance traps millions of high earners in lifestyles they no longer even enjoy proportionally. They continue paying for appearances long after the emotional satisfaction faded. And modern culture constantly reinforces the cycle. Advertising exists to convince people that identity can be purchased, that happiness lives one upgrade away. A better car, better kitchen, better wardrobe, better vacation, better image. But eventually, many people discover something uncomfortable. Lifestyle upgrades raise expectations faster than they raise lasting fulfillment, which explains why so many financially successful people still feel anxious, overworked, and emotionally exhausted. The external numbers changed, the internal relationship with money did not. This is where real wealth becomes deeply misunderstood. Most people assume wealth means visible luxury, but genuine financial freedom often looks surprisingly ordinary. Real wealth is the ability to say no. No to toxic jobs, no to burnout, no to panic during economic downturns, no to staying trapped in situations purely because the bills became too large. That kind of freedom is invisible. You cannot photograph it for social media. You cannot lease it. You cannot fake it convincingly for long. It must be built gradually through behavior, repeated consistently over time. According to research from multiple financial planning organizations and long-term investor studies, many self-made millionaires spent decades living below their means before reaching significant wealth milestones. Most did not become wealthy overnight. Most became wealthy slowly, quietly, boringly. Consistency mattered more than excitement, and that's the part modern internet culture struggles to accept. Financial independence is usually less dramatic than people expect. It's not one giant breakthrough moment. It's repeated behavior, controlled spending, consistent investing, delayed gratification, margin protection, avoiding lifestyle explosions every time income rises. That process lacks viral glamour, but mathematically, it works. Meanwhile, many high earners unknowingly sacrifice their most valuable wealth-building years because they assume future income will compensate for present overspending. It usually doesn't, because lifestyle expands alongside income almost automatically unless interrupted intentionally. The raise arrives. Then the larger home arrives. Then the remodel arrives. Then the upgraded vacations arrive. Then the luxury school tuition arrives. And the gap between earning and spending barely changes. Years pass, sometimes decades, until people reach middle age shocked by how little freedom they actually possess relative to their income history. That realization can feel devastating because it forces an uncomfortable question. What was all this spending really for? Did it genuinely improve life proportionally? Some of it probably did. Convenience matters. Experiences matter. Comfort matters. But many expenses delivered temporary emotional rewards while creating permanent financial pressure. That distinction matters enormously, because intentional luxury and unconscious luxury produce completely different futures. Financially successful people often practice selective extravagance. They spend heavily on what genuinely matters to them while remaining disciplined elsewhere. One person may deeply value travel while driving a modest car. Another may prioritize flexible work over luxury housing. Another may care deeply about education while aggressively controlling lifestyle inflation elsewhere. The point is not minimalism. The point is intentionality. And this becomes increasingly important in an economy where visibility constantly pressures people toward performance spending. The internet monetized appearances. Looking successful became economically valuable in many industries. But performing wealth and building wealth are often opposite behaviors. One optimizes for perception, the other optimizes for freedom. Eventually, everyone chooses which game they're playing, whether consciously or unconsciously. Marcus realized this during a dinner with old college friends. One friend earned less than half his income, yet appeared calmer, healthier, and less financially stressed. That friend had a smaller house, older car, simpler lifestyle, but he also had investments, flexibility, time with family, and enough savings to survive years without panic. Marcus suddenly understood something painful. He had optimized for looking successful instead of feeling secure. And the irony is, many people trapped in high-income lifestyles secretly know this already. They feel it late at night when the notifications stop, when the distractions disappear, when the expensive apartment feels strangely empty. They know the lifestyle costs more emotionally than they admit publicly, but changing course requires confronting identity. Because scaling back spending sometimes feels like admitting failure in a culture obsessed with visible achievement. That emotional barrier keeps people trapped far longer than mathematics ever would. But the people who eventually escape the trap usually discover the same thing. Peace matters more than performance. Margin matters more than appearances. Freedom matters more than status. And once someone experiences the emotional relief of genuine financial flexibility, many status symbols lose their psychological power completely. The goal of money is not endless consumption. The goal is control over your life, control over your time, your decisions, your stress levels, your future. Income alone cannot provide that. Only the gap between earning and spending can, which is why a person earning $200,000 while living intentionally may ultimately become wealthier than someone earning $600,000 trapped inside uncontrolled lifestyle expansion. The numbers alone never determine the outcome. Behavior does. And that truth explains why so many people who appear successful still feel financially exhausted. The high-income poverty trap is real. It affects doctors, executives, attorneys, consultants, entrepreneurs, engineers, and professionals across every major industry. Not because they failed academically, not because they lack intelligence, but because modern culture trains people to upgrade lifestyles faster than they build assets. Breaking the cycle requires something deceptively simple and psychologically difficult. Keeping more of what you earn. Not eventually, not after the next raise, not after the next promotion. Now. Because the longer lifestyle inflation compounds unchecked, the harder it becomes emotionally and financially to reverse. And perhaps the most important realization of all is this. Some people spend their entire lives trying to look rich, while quietly selling away the very freedom money was supposed to buy. The wealthiest people are not always the ones spending the most. Often, they are the ones who need the least to feel free. Thanks for watching.